Our next speaker is Professor Margaret Ikpoh, who is the Vice Chair of the RCGP and has a stunning litany of other titles, which we won't spend the next minutes covering. And she's going to be talking about, I suppose, well, hopefully two together, but two critical points around why the GP partnership model is worth fighting for, and also the role of digital health in personalised care.
Thank you, Liam. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. So I'll give you a bit of time because this will only take me 10 minutes. Apologies, I don't have any slides. I just want to say thank you for inviting me here. LinkedIn actually does link us up. And I'm fangirling Dakshana in the second row there. Please see her, because if you want to know about the next generation, that's who you need to see. And Gary, name-checking you as well. So I'll crack on. Two of my most important roles, one is as a partner, but the other is as a mum. But yeah, I won't go into that. Manal, thank you for mentioning Hull. Dan and Anne have been profound. So I am from the Far East, which is Hull, and I've been there for about the last 16 years as a GP partner. And health inequalities in that area, as Chris Whitty aptly described in his coastal deprivation report a few years ago, is alive and kicking. I'm mindful that the patients that I see receive probably around 14% less funding than, say, well, someone in this borough that we're standing in right now. So 16 years ago, why is the GP partnership model so important to me, and why is it worth fighting for? I'll take you back to when I first started as a partner 16 years ago. One of my first patients was a 50-year-old who was suffering with really bad headaches, father of 3, and he was demonstrating some subtle neurological signs. My gut, because sometimes as GPs we use our gut, wasn't saying that this was a 2-week urgent cancer referral, but I needed to do something. I needed to arrange a CT scan. But here's the thing. Back then as a GP, I couldn't do that. There was no direct access to CT. My only option was to refer him to a consultant, wait for the appointment, wait again for the imaging request, and all the while I knew that something was crucial. It felt wrong, it felt unsafe, and it felt like the system was getting in the way of me doing the right thing for my patient. So Liam said, I think the word revolution about 10 times in your opening, and the only person that came to mind at that time was Tracy Chapman, but I'll come to her in a minute. Now, I could have accepted things the way they were, but instead I picked up the phone. I reached out to 2 friends, Paul and Ollie, who were consultant radiologists, and we sat down, talked it through, looked at the evidence, and step by step, we built one of the first GP direct CT referral pathways in our area. It wasn't easy, took persistence, because there was a lot of anxiety from GPs. Are we sure we were able to do this? And there was anxiety from our secondary care colleagues who did not want to be, in one word, and someone said, ambushed with CT requests. But we did it, and it made care better, not just for that one patient, but for hundreds and now thousands more. That experience taught me a lesson I've never forgotten as a GP partner, that being a partner isn't just about delivering care within the system, it's about shaping the system around our patients. And that, to me, is exactly what the GP partnership model is all about. It's special, it's unique, and it's in our healthcare system. It's a model that allows us as general practitioners to be locally rooted, clinically led, and actually deeply accountable to the people we serve. As partners, we're not just clinicians, we're leaders, innovators, employers, and advocates for our communities. And sometimes we're even handymen and handy women. You know, often I am fixing a faulty leak in my 1930s build. That is not unusual. We make decisions about how care is organised, and we respond to local needs because we know our patients best, and the evidence shows it works. More than 90% of all NHS patient contacts happen in general practice, and studies consistently show that continuity of care, something that thrives in a partnership model, is linked to lower mortality, fewer hospital admissions, and higher patient satisfaction. Practices with strong, engaged partners often achieve better outcomes, and we adopt innovation faster and integrate more effectively. And internationally, we are known in the UK as having one of the most efficient systems in the world, delivering comprehensive care with less than 8% of total NHS spending. In fact, Lord Darcy's review last year credited the partnership model with giving general practice the best financial discipline in the health service family. But beyond the model, there is human strength. It lets practices reflect the character and needs of their communities and allows us to be agile and to adapt quickly when we need to change. But yet, despite this, we know that partnerships are falling and the model is under real pressure. The workforce is shrinking and more GPs are leaving than joining. Around 1 in 3 partners say they're considering leaving within the next 5 years. The operational and financial pressures are immense. Rising demand, workforce shortages, estate issues, regulation, they're all taking their toll. And perhaps most damaging of all is sometimes the public narrative. It's often been quite unfair and negative, and it overshadows the extraordinary work that's happening in practices every single day. Some people argue that the solution is to move away from partnerships altogether, to bring us into large salaried organisations, to standardise and centralise. But personally, I believe deeply that that would be a mistake, because in doing so, we risk losing the very things that make us powerful as primary care partners: local ownership, continuity, and accountability. At our annual conference last week, our President Richard Vaughtry declared, "We lose the independent contractor status at our peril, as to do so will not only make things worse for our profession, it will be really bad news for our patients. Because once these things are gone, they're incredibly difficult to rebuild." So bringing me very quickly on to digital, because no conversation about the future of primary care is complete without it. Digital technology isn't a magic wand, but when it's used well, it can be one of the most powerful tools we have to deliver personalised and proactive care. And we're already seeing it in action. Here in London, we've had a digital-first hypertension programme using remote blood pressure monitoring and risk stratification. And this has prevented strokes and saved lives. In Manchester, practices are integrating social prescribing platforms directly into clinical systems, linking patients to community support and tackling the social determinants of health. And across the country, tools like the NHS app are transforming how people access care, helping them manage their health in ways that suit them. But we need to be mindful that not everybody has access to the app. And even those that have access do not always assimilate the information they receive. Very quick example, in my substance misuse clinic a few weeks ago, I asked, and I'll call her Jenny, "Jenny, I've sent you multiple texts about your cervical smear. Our uptake is very, very low in the coast." And she sighed and she said to me, "Margaret," we're on a first name basis, and she just said it, "I can't read." And at that point, I realised, and I felt so ashamed, the reading age of my population is about the age of 6. Overnight, we had a solution. We employed our social prescribers to engage with that particular cohort to encourage uptake, which they have done, and they've done a fantastic job. But digital isn't just about apps or remote consultations. It's about data-driven, personalised care. Imagine a future where our clinical systems automatically flag frailty risk before the first fall, where wearable devices feed directly into care plans, and where genomics helps us tailor treatments with precision. That future isn't far off. And here's where the partnership model matters again. Because as partners, we are embedded in our communities and accountable for outcomes, and we're trusted by our patients to deliver these technologies safely, effectively, and meaningfully. So where does that leave us? I believe the partnership model is worth fighting for. And here's what I think that action that Minal talks about looks like. First, we must as GPs lead with vision. We must be seen to be exploring alternative approaches to the partnership model. And we need to stop thinking of ourselves purely as service providers and embrace our role as system architects. Second, we must collaborate as true partners across the system. The CT pathway I told you about in the start, that only happened because of the relationships we had with our secondary care colleagues. And we need to apply those same principles today with our community sector, social care, and voluntary sectors as well, because we cannot continue as silos. Third, policymakers and system leaders must create the right conditions for partnerships to thrive. We must remove the barriers for our next generation. Many of my GP registrars and junior doctors, well, I can't call them that, GP registrars, are worried about the impact that partnership will have on their finances. We need investment in primary care estates and digital infrastructure, and that means tackling the administrative burden as well that pulls us away from our patients. And fourth, we must shape digital transformation on our own terms. Digital should never be something that's done to general practice. It should be shaped by general practice. And that means embedding technology in ways that enhance relationships, improve outcomes, and narrow, not widen, health inequalities. So to close, 16 years ago, I learned that a change in the NHS doesn't always come from top down. Sometimes it really does start with a single patient, a single conversation, and a single partnership. I do believe today we're at a crossroads with regards to how we structure general practice and deploy digital. If we get it right, we can build a system that's more personalised and more proactive and more equitable than ever before. If we get it wrong, we risk fragmenting the very fabric of care for our communities. So my challenge to myself and to all of you and every part of this system is this: let's not be bystanders. Let's lead change. Let's build deeper, stronger relationships with organisational boundaries. Let's design services with our communities, not just for them. And let's make sure the GP partnership model is built on trust, accountability, and local leadership so that we thrive. Because if we don't do that, we won't just be preserving a model of care, we'll be safeguarding the health and well-being of millions of people for generations to come. In the words of Tracy Chapman, don't you know, they're talking about a revolution. It sounds like a whisper, and finally, the tables are starting to turn. Thank you.